Okay, so Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I welcome you all to this first exciting episode of MUMKIN Corporate Majlis. Thank you very much for joining. Let's begin. So my name is Umair Akram and I'm the CEO of MUMKIN Coaching and Consulting. This initiative is specifically to talk about what challenges our currently faced by the modern corporates when it comes to different areas of productivity related to employees and related to other areas commonly in practice these days. So we'll start with specifically with the productivity at workplace when it comes to the teams that work for the corporates. Today, joining with me is Saad. Saad, if you could please introduce yourself.
Assalamu alaikum. Thank you, Coach Umair, for the introduction. Yeah, I really excited about this conversation. We've been talking about this for a couple of weeks. It's a real interesting topic, productivity. So I'm an environmental consultant by background, and I'm a coach. So I'm a mindset coach, and I'm based out of Dubai. I've basically always lived in the UAE. So I'm a child of the desert. And it's a very, as a lot of us know, Dubai and the UAE in general is a very fast-paced place that demands productivity. So this has been a long time sort of interest area of mine. How can I optimize productivity? How can I optimize that for the people that I coach? So yeah, looking forward to this conversation.
Excellent intro, Saad. So let's jump straight into our discussion and see. Let me invite our participants. If somebody wants to add something or somebody wants to talk anything about productivity at workplace, you're most welcome. You can unmute your mic and start talking.
So is this a voluntary activity or is this everyone has to do that?
It's a voluntary activity, and we'll wait for 1 minute. And if somebody doesn't come up, then I'll call names. So let's see.
So I have a suggestion here, Marvin.
Okay.
My suggestion is that let's keep it voluntary. If someone really wants to come forward, he or she is more than welcome. If not, then we'll start our discussion, which is primarily the purpose of this meetup.
Exactly. That's what was in my mind. If somebody does not come up, and since you spoke the first, I would have called your name.
Oh,
so Naibai,
okay.
why don't you take the lead and add something here?
Well, let me introduce myself. I can see a couple of faces over here. Well, I don't see the faces. A couple of names are new to this. My name is Naya, and I'm one of the coaches at MUMKIN, and been associated ever since MUMKIN was born in 2018. So it's been more than 4.5 years now, alhamdulillah. Well, I'm based in Riyadh, and I coach people. So this was my brief introduction. So I would like to start by asking people, how do they define productivity? Because our topic today is focused about productivity in general. Productivity, not in general, but productivity at workplace. So what productivity means to you, then we will take our discussion forward, inshallah. So anyone who may like to share his or her thoughts about productivity. You can write in a chat window or open your mic and speak up, whatever that you feel comfortable about.
So while people step forward and write their definitions of productivity, Saad, why don't you go ahead and let me know what you think about productivity at workplace?
Yeah, I think before I do that, we have received. So Hisham says getting things done according to priority, and Yahya has said accomplishing the tasks you set for your day. Yeah, so we're getting a lot of messages now. And Qayyum says, deliver maximum output in limited time and resources. And then Bilal Ahmed says, getting right things done right. It's interesting. So I think the first one, like getting things done according to priority, that's quite a interesting definition of productivity, right? Because I think prioritization is one of the things that you always hear, like, before you start, you should prioritize what is the most important part of your day. What do you really want to achieve? So do you have any thoughts, Coach Umair, about that, about where priority sits in that importance and productivity, and how do you go about, doing your priority list?
Well, I think prioritizing is one of the basic ingredients of enhancing or improving productivity at workplace. But a more important question lies, as you mentioned towards the end, how do you prioritize your things? How do you prioritize your tasks? That in itself is a complete science. So yes, I believe that prioritization is a very important ingredient for productivity, but prioritizing correctly is more important than prioritizing itself.
I mean, that's interesting, prioritizing correctly. So if someone were to try to prioritize, my tongue is leaving, prioritize correctly, how would they go about and do that? I'm just like, is it more of like a value question? Because that's what's coming to me, is that it's almost like your priorities need to be aligned with your values. So maybe you have, it's kind of a value question, right? What do you think?
Yes, you're right. It's kind of a value prioritization according to the value, but I can see a different perspective to it. Prioritization towards achieving the right goals or the desired goals. So the result is what drives the prioritization.
Right. Yeah. Okay. So
when we talk about productivity, it's all about results.
Yeah. And the other interesting one that caught my eye is deliver maximum output. So Qayyum has said, deliver maximum output in limited time and resources. Right. I think that's quite relevant as well, because currently, especially at the organizational level, there is a real crunch, right? So one of the most common feedbacks that I get when I'm, coaching professionals in the industry is they'll say, 5 years ago, I used to do an X amount of work, and now I'm being basically asked to do 200% more at the same level. There's been a real crunch in, I guess, people have to deliver more volume as well as also more complex solutions to problems, because the workplace and the problems we're trying to solve appear to be, at least in my industry, getting more complex. So the whole idea of delivering maximum output in limited time and resources, there's been a real crunch in that. And that's often a question mark. Like when teams have workshops, they always say, what is the most we can get out of this team? How do we squeeze the most out of it? It's a dilemma for a lot of teams these days.
So Saad, when you say maximum output, what does that imply? Who sets the benchmark for maximum?
Yeah, no, I think that's a really interesting thought. I guess I mean, at the organizational level, it's the corporate leaders, right, that are setting the output for maximum. So they're saying, these are your targets. You have to meet this in Q1 or Q2, and that's what's driving the team. That's their kind of yardstick of success, is if we meet this, then we were productive. If we don't meet this, then maybe we weren't. But that's a really interesting thought. Like, who defines maximum output, or who defines the measure of productivity for a team? Because that can mean different things for different different teams, different people. I see Coach Faisal has his hand up.
Yeah, I have a question. So you guys are talking about productivity in terms of output and results, right? So what if I give more than, if I give my 100% and I don't get the results? So am I unproductive?
That's a very, very interesting question.
Yeah. So we've already got one message saying no.
Let's see what Nearby has.
Yeah,
Nearby, what
no,
do you have
actually,
to?
that no means no is probably the response to my question. When I said productivity means delivering in time, means delivering in time whatever that you wanted to deliver. If you have completed this in time, is this what you call productivity? This was what I meant. So some Abdul Qayyum says no, and Sapak says with the best quality that you can deliver. All right. So see this. Let's come back to the question that Brother Faisal has raised, and then we'll come back to the comments. So, Brother Faisal, if you can repeat your question.
So I'll repeat again. So you are defining productivity in terms of results and delivery. So what if I try 100% or go an extra mile, but did not get the results that I wanted? So am I a productive person or an unproductive person?
First way, I think your question relates more to the quality of results, not the quantity of results, if I may understand it properly.
Okay, I have a different opinion here. See, results are not in our hands. Results are what is in our control or our hands is the efforts, the amount of efforts that you can pitch in, the quality of effort that you can pitch in. But as far as the results is concerned, it's from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And if man delivers, if man endeavors, God delivers. You know, it's a very famous proverb. So if you do it, I don't see any reason that why you will not get the results. So you will get the results, inshallah ta'ala. Right. So let's focus on what we can control, not about what is uncontrollable, what is beyond our circle of influence or control. So I would like to stick our discussion to this parameter.
I think just going back to what Coach Faisal was asking, like if someone sets a target for you and let's say you achieve 70% of that, but not 100% of that, does that mean you were unproductive? I think that's how I understood that question. And I think at a organizational level, I think what professionals need, because people can be very self-critical of themselves, right? So if you're an ambitious professional and you really want to meet your organizational targets, but at the end of the quarter or whatever, at the end of the month, you don't meet your target, it can really set you back. And a lot of even high-performing professionals feel this, right? They're very self-critical, and then their motivation goes down. They get burnt out, and then in fact, their performance declines beyond that point because they start to lose faith. I can't meet the target. But I think that's a really interesting point of view in that just because someone has set a target and you meet 70%, I think the conversation beyond that point, as we advance the way we work together in organizations, and there's more of a, rather than the hierarchy reporting system, there's more of a collaborative approach to working. I think it's more about having that conversation, like, you know, if we're at 70%, this is what was done to achieve 70%, because you may have set a target 4 months ago, but the conditions have changed. Maybe the market conditions have changed. Maybe the geopolitical conditions have changed. I mean, which often happens in the region that we live in. So I think it's a more nuanced conversation to justify what does that 70% mean. It might have required a lot of creativity and effort. And I think there's that negotiation. So I don't think it's more of like a numbers thing anymore. It's more of a nuanced conversation and having that open discussion with the targets or whoever is responsible for those targets and the people delivering that targets. So I don't know, did that message resonate with anyone else on the call?
Actually, I see a very interesting comment in the chat. It's by Hisham, and the brother is saying, I think this ties to priorities and setting it right to achieve results and highest impact. I think highest impact is the key word here. So whenever I'm not being able to achieve my results, but I'm able to create some kind of impact through my learning. Like if I'm working in a new product development area, so the chances of success are very less. So most of the time you are not getting the success, but you are always getting the lessons that helps you become better. So I think that can be relate with the productivity at work. So the impact is a very good word. Thank you, Hisham, for sharing.
So I would say I would take up another word over here from Hisham's input. There are two things, Brother Faisal. One is the impact, and the other one is priority. So let me relate an interesting story over here. I happen to coach a team on a small workshop. We have a small workshop called Time Thieves. Know your time thieves before they steal away your time. So in this workshop, there was a team, and this was a software development team, and working on a critical system. So one of the challenges that the team mentioned was that we work so hard, and still we continue to be beaten by our managers that you guys are not being productive. So we really sometimes we really get demotivated. So what's really going on in our life? We don't understand. All right. So guys, what are you working on? So there were 5 members in this team, and so I asked them to write whatever they're working on. So 5 people, I mean, high level threads. So 5 people came up with different inputs. So what we did is that we displayed in an Excel sheet that these are the 5 different things that you guys are working on. And of course, they were part of the same team. So the inputs were not very different. So let's suppose we compiled a list together, and the list came up to 10 to 15 items. Then the next question was, guys, please classify this. Is it a new development that is going to bring you more features and more money? Is this bug fix? Or is it a haphazard request from anyone else, or what it is? How do you classify? So there were 4 categories. Or is it by request by some operations or something? So when they identify, when they label each of the threads that they are currently working on, and then the next question was how much the amount that they have been spending under each of these threads. So we color coded all these rows in the Excel sheet, and then when we accumulated the amount, they came to understand that more than 35% to 40% of their time is actually being consumed in only bug fixing, and they were not able to focus really. So imagine 35 to 40% on bug fixing, then part of it is operations. So actually very limited amount of time was actually spent on the development of new features. And this is what the senior management's concern was, that they were not rolling out the development new features which were supposed to bring more revenue, right? Now I would like you to look at this example from both perspectives. The team said that we have been highly productive because we are working day and night, putting all of our efforts. But the management says they were not productive. So Coach Faisal, probably this is an example that closely relates to your question, if I'm not wrong. Say yes or no.
Yeah.
Right?
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Naya, for sharing.
So what happened? So let me complete this example, and then you can carry on. So what was happened by doing this exercise? Actually, this exercise was done based on a book called Making Work Visible by Dominica De Grandes, a fantastic book on helping people understand how to make their work visible so that their senior management knows what they are working on. Anyway, so the team decided reprioritize their work, and reprioritizing means that focusing, let's say, less on the burning issues, or separating some resources on the burning issues which are bug fixes or whatever, and then focusing with specific resources on rolling out the new features. So this is how they decided to work on, based on the facts that we collected from this team workshop. So I hope I put my point across. So coming back to Hisham's point, there are 2 things over here. Prioritization means what the management wants, and prioritization and impact, and again at the same time achieving the results. So I think this story may help you understand. So I'll mute myself.
Thank you, Naya, for sharing. I think brother Hisham wants to share something. He opened his mic. So Hisham, please go ahead.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. I'm sorry, I'm nursing a cold, so my voice is not the best. So what I meant was confirming was what Brother Nair said. We only concerned about what we control. So what we control is the amount of effort we put in to work, but also we control the priorities. So maybe the overall direction is there, but setting smaller and sub priorities in a better way to achieve these the higher excuse me, the higher results is something in our hand that we need to take care of, and not only rely on single KPI of how many hours I've worked on, but is just the amount of effort. The direction is also important, and some of these directions are in our hands. Some of it, of course, is not in our hands. But the priorities that we can set definitely impacts the overall productivity. Thank you.
So based on what we have heard so far, I have an insight, Saad. So what I'm hearing is, and what I'm understanding is that productivity cannot have a standard definition for everyone. It will vary from person to person. It will vary from organization to organization. It will have a different method of measurement from one organization to the other.
Yeah, absolutely. And as you said, like everyone has a different definition. I'd like to invite Bilal Ahmed to share, because he said productivity is putting efficiency after effectiveness. That's an interesting definition. Bilal, would you like to tell us a little bit about this? Elaborate on this idea.
So I want to tell you something over here, that we would like this meetup to be interactive. So we don't want to be speaking at all times. We would like people to come and participate and give their inputs. It's better if they can speak up, and the second priority is that they're right. So it's up to you, but we would like people to be more participative. Just create it's an informal meetup. It's not a lecture or anything that's similar.
Yes, Bilal, go ahead.
Okay. See, Yahya has his hand up as well. Yahya, would you like to please go ahead?
Assalamu alaikum. I heard you guys talking about productivity. I thought that it was how much you can put through the queue, but you are talking about the impact of things that you get done that will change the aspect of productivity. Can you elaborate a little bit more on that?
Yeah, I think impact is a really interesting term, and it's about. So I think the conversation is, it does volume equal impact, and the definition of productivity shifts drastically when you talk about impact over volume, because I'm sure we have seen this in our own professional lives as well. Sometimes this is a very sort of practical example almost. I see an email from someone. I work in consulting in my day job. And what I found after the past 12 years of working in the industry is the best consultants are able to convey a message with literally 2 lines. And if someone is writing paragraphs and paragraphs to convey the same message, I mean, sure, you might be spending 20 minutes on an email thinking, oh, I was really productive for the past 20 minutes, but how impactful is that really? How many people are actually going to read that email? How many people have the time to go through paragraphs and paragraphs, whereas some other person, he's spending 5 minutes, but his 5 minutes are more impactful. So I think that's really the difference. And I think productivity and I don't think they're mutually exclusive. I think they align. I think if you're truly productive, then you are being impactful. It's not just about volume, especially in the emphasis that we have now in the workplace and in the world in general on resource efficiency. Productivity and impactfulness almost, I think they go hand in hand. They're not mutually exclusive. What do you think, Coach Amir?
You're absolutely right. They go hand in hand. They're not mutually exclusive. Every high productivity activity has an impact. That's for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
So can I add something over here if you don't mind? Right?
Yeah.
See this. There's something very important to understand. You cannot bring impact if you're into too many things, right? So the focus is the key. What do you call critically important or key factor over here? So I'll give you an example and then I'll come back to this discussion. So there is one simple rule, and I think most of us know already. So we need not discuss that, and that is called 80-20 rule. I mean, there are some 20% things in your work life which are going to yield or bring 80% of the results. So what stops us from focusing those 20% which can bring us 80% output? So this is rule number one, or the most important rule. So a lot of times we tend not to focus on those 20% because we get drifted away by our firefighting day every day. The moment we enter, and the fire is there, and the day is spent on the firefighting. Now, so this was related to 80-20 rule. The second thing that I would like to emphasize is that what is our frame of reference? It's the 80-20% rule. We are working for corporations, or are you working for ourselves? Means, are we self-employed? So it all depends. So if you have your own business and you are working for yourself, then your priority is different. If you're working for a corporation or an organization, then your priority is something different. For instance, I recently happened to coach a gentleman who prepared a quarterly plan for the entire organization. So it's a big organization, mashallah, and he's doing very well. So he got the plan approved by the board of directors. And then the board of directors say that we would really like to see this. The plan is immaculate, and we would like to see it happening. All right. So so the guy discussed the plan with me, and I said, yes, the plan was really good. We developed this together. Now, the most important thing was not the beauty of the plan. The important thing was the execution of the plan. So I asked him, how are you going to measure your progress? And the guy came up with a worksheet where he said that these are the active threads in our day-to-day work, and this is how I'm going to report my progress so that my work becomes visible to my manager, who is the CEO. I said, okay, now tell me that this is the worksheet that you have brought now, and how is it related to the plan that you have showed earlier to your CEO and to the board of directors, because you're going to ask about that. The guy was quiet, because actually in his firefighting, actually he had forgotten that aspect. That board is going to ask about the plan which was shown to them, not the plan that he is brought up based on his day-to-day active working threads. So then he decided, no, this plan will not work. I need to cross-reference at least, or get the items from the actual plan, which was created for quarterly and even for 2023, and then show the execution. So actually, now this is how you prioritize. This is how you focus on what you are required to do rather than what you want to do to work on, right? So this is how you create the impact, by focus, because you cannot focus each and everything. So what is the strategic at this stage? Because this guy is a corporate strategist. So what is important over here is that we come from the tactical or transactional level to the more strategic level, and see what is required to be done, and then act accordingly.
Excellent, very excellent addition. What I'm understanding from this is that productivity, the measure of productivity is not always quantitative. It has a very important qualitative aspect to it.
Yeah. And this is also, if I can add something, one of the things we had in our flyer was attention is an important currency. It's the most important currency in the digital age. And all the talk about focus and what we should be focusing on. And then, and also Bilal Ahmed just sent us a messaging. Productivity is not busyness, absolutely, 100%. But this is a good segue into that. Why why is your attention the most important currency in the digital age, in the information age? And how does focusing your attention really have a big impact on productivity? I found an interesting statistics when I was looking online. It says the average person today sees or hears about 4,000 to 10,000 messages per day. So this is messages across various channels. It might be scrolling, it might be WhatsApp, LinkedIn. And so the more important thing, rather than that number, is that between 2007 and now, the amount of messages we see per day has doubled. So that's like that's a huge increase in how many messages you're seeing, and that obviously has an impact on where your attention goes, right? So I think that would be an interesting thing to explore is, your attention as a currency and why we should think of it as a currency, because every time you give your attention or focus to something, your energy is being spent on that, whether you realize it or not. Even if you're just scrolling, or if you're focusing on the wrong aspect, if you're focusing on the transactional rather than the strategic, and really you should be looking at the strategic, then you're using up your energy. So what are your thoughts on that, Coach Amir?
You're actually pointing out at towards a very important aspect of productivity. Attention is, as you can see in the chat, I would scroll it and I'll read it for you. Brother Abdul Alim has pointed out that productivity is time multiplied by energy multiplied by attention. So the lower your attention, or lower the quality of your attention, the lower will be your productivity. So that's how important it is.
And I think attention is also very closely linked to the term most of us on the call may or may not be familiar with. It's called the monkey brain, right? So it's that chatter in the back of constant mental chatter, right? So when you wake up, first thing you wake up in the morning, people start immediately, it starts, and you're thinking about deadlines, or something or the other, or something completely. And the interesting thing about, at least for me, speaking from my personal experience, the mental chatter never has anything to do with the present moment of what I'm doing, right? So if I'm trying to write an important email, there will be a mental chatter about what am I going to have for lunch. So it's happening in that background, and that's the monkey brain, and that's, I think, also very closely linked to attention. So I was thinking about this, in terms of taming the monkey brain, if you can call it that, or at least becoming friends with the monkey brain. I think there's been a lot of research on this as well, and lots of really amazing books written. And one of the things that I came across was that journaling has been proven to be quite effective in kind of making peace with that mental chatter, so it doesn't always disturb you. And I guess I'm curious if anyone else on the call has tried journaling, or if you would like to share your experience of journaling with us. Come on, guys, don't be shy.
By journaling, you mean maintaining the daily schedule as well as the work in the diary, or what? I think this is you mean.
Saad, can you explain journaling, please?
Yeah, I think journaling, generally in the context of what I'm saying, Coach Umair, you can add to this, but my understanding of it is it's more or less a daily practice where you write down your stream of thoughts. You write down the story that you're feeling. It could be objective, it could be more emotional, but generally it's an outlet for you, for that mental chatter to go somewhere and then be looked at by you. So do you agree with that definition, or perhaps you want to add something to that?
That's a very good definition. And I would just add that journaling, if I summarize journaling, my understanding about journaling is that it's a tool for you to self-reflect.
Well,
come up with the things. Sure.
Yeah, journaling is talking to yourself about yourself. talking to yourself about yourself.
Mm.
So it can be in some sort of some questions, or it can be sort of some emotional reflection or whatever that comes to you. So journaling is primarily checking upon yourself. So I would like to share two things over here.
Never
One
before,
is, yeah,
just
go
before
ahead.
that, adding
Please.
to your definition that talking about yourself to yourself, and then walking away with something that will improve your productivity.
Self-reflection helps in that. Yes, that's correct. Because
And
actually your own focus is you yourself, not the other people.
Bilal has mentioned a very interesting aspect of it. It's thinking on paper.
Brings clarity. That's correct.
Yeah.
That's correct.
And sometimes journaling helps you in decluttering your mind as well. So if you have too many things on your mind, what you can do is you start putting them on paper and you free up your mental capacity for the task in hand. So it helps you increase your focus and retain your attention to something particular.
And sorry, Naribai, before you say, the very interesting tool that Hisham has pointed towards is the Eisenhower matrix. So when you're journaling, you could probably use such tools as Eisenhower matrix and prioritize your things. As Faisal Bhai mentioned, that it can declutter your thoughts. It can also create clarity for you to where to prioritize, where to prioritize, and what to do first and what to not do at all. So Eisenhower matrix is a very important tool for that, very effective tool.
Thank you for adding that.
Thank you very much, Hisham.
Thank you.
Did someone else on the call want to add anything? Anyone from our participants? We have a shy group today.
I want to add one more thing, Saad, because now you forced me to say something regarding currency. You know, when it comes to money, I cannot resist.
Go ahead.
So see, you mentioned currency, right? So this is another real life story that I happened to coach an executive, and that guy was not focusing on business and getting into the small things here and there, and not being able to spend his time effectively, or not exactly focusing on what he should have been doing. So I asked him, by the way, what is your cost for one average? You know, what's the price tag that your 1 hour of your time carries? So he proudly said 10,000 rupees an hour, Pakistan rupees, 10,000 rupees an hour. All right, this is your price tag. He said yes. I said, all right. So whenever you do whatever the activity that you're doing, I would like you to match this. These are the activity and this is your price tag. And tell me what is matching your price tag. Whatever that you have done, what matches your price tag? Yes or no? If it matches, go ahead and do it. If not, then think about this. So the guy was, stunned over the call. He was quiet for quite some time. And then because this is a very simple question, guys. Ask yourself, what level in the organization that I'm working, and what is my price tag for 1 hour? If my activity is matching that price tag, go ahead and do it. If not, if your price tag is higher and you're not using your time, you better think again. So it came to my head with the word currency. Thank you for adding this.
So Saad, when talking about attention as a currency, what is the biggest, in your opinion, distractor to attention?
I think it's very subjective to the person, right? So obviously the first culprit that comes to mind for all of us, I guess, is social media. It's social media is the biggest distractor. And in fact, there's been studies on this, and so psychologists have even gone to defining what exactly is a distraction, right? So how do you define distraction? And I'll just read direct from the definition here. It says distractions are caused by task irrelevant stimuli that interrupt goal-directed behavior. So if you're trying to do something which is a goal-directed behavior, anything that interrupts that behavior is a distraction. So I think that's a really neat and very clean definition of what a distraction is. And I was thinking about this in my own experience. So not sometimes, 90% of the time, we have our phone on our desks, at least I do, right? And I tell myself, I'm not gonna look at my phone. But the reality is that even if I turn the ringer off and the vibration off, if I get a message, my phone starts to blink. And there's a different light for each social media app. So I think LinkedIn, it blinks blue, WhatsApp, it blinks green. So I'm writing or I'm trying to write something in my notes, and then I will glance at that light. So immediately, I mean, it was really interesting for me because I was justifying to myself that, oh, I'm not distracted. But if you go by this definition, even having my phone on the desk and it blinking is a distraction. And studies have shown that even these small distractions, they do impact the end product. If you're trying to, pursue something that's a very goal-oriented behavior and it needs high level of attention and focus, the quality of your end deliverable is impacted. So actually, this is an insight that came to me today. So I think from next Monday, I'll have to keep my phone inside of my laptop bag or something rather than on my desk and pretend it's not distracting me. And I see someone has shared. So Aisha Fatima say, I think distraction is another word for procrastination. That's a really interesting feedback. And that was also on one of the key topics that we wanted to discuss today. So I think it's a good segue into that topic of procrastination. And I guess I'm curious, like on the call, like, does anyone have a recent experience of procrastination, or maybe like it's something you're trying to do but really struggling with because of procrastination?
Reading books always.
Opening up mic and speaking and sharing my thoughts.
Anyone else?
So let's address Hisham's point: reading books and procrastination in reading books. And this is not the case with Hisham. This is with so many other people that I came across. Reading books is a big time challenge. Yes. So there are some further inputs from Yahya, and Yahya said writing a very long policy, learning something new, not focusing on traction is distraction. Yes. Now let's focus a little bit about here, and then I'll tell you a story if you allow me. So Saad, tell me if you see. I have a tendency to speak, so I know because I love to talk. So if you have anything, you can raise your hand, and I'll zip my mouth. Okay, so see this is something very important. When we talk about our distraction, as Bilal says, not focusing on traction, it is distraction. So distraction is a combination of two words, dis and traction, right? So that means something that takes away your traction. So the question is that what is that something where you wanted your traction to be? Traction means sticking to something. Now pulling, the power of pull is traction. So what do you want it to be attracted to, from which your distraction is taking you away, right? So if your traction is strong, there's no distraction that can take you away. But if the traction is loose, of course, it will pull your traction away, right? So it's very simple. So the clarity of thoughts is very, very critical over here, that what you want to do has to be clear. Small little steps, and why do you want to do that, and how are you going to do that? So this is very important. Yeah, Umar bhai, go ahead.
So the question that comes to my mind at this point is that is procrastination a distractor, or is it something else?
Let me explain you over here. Procrastination is not distractor, and in my opinion, but they're very closely related to each other. Distraction creates procrastination, and because of procrastination, you get into distraction. So what happens when when you get distracted, or when your distractions take your traction away? So your actual things were not clear, your traction was not clear. That's why your distraction took your attention away. So for instance, people say that biggest distraction is mobile phones, right? So the biggest distraction is mobile phones. So in my opinion, what I understand over a period of time is that biggest distraction is not the mobile phone. biggest distraction is the internal my or your internal distraction, which is unclear thoughts. So because see this, human mind is made for action. So and action is easier than thinking. I repeat my words. Action is easier than thinking. So rather than thinking, we have a natural tendency to pick up the phone and do something, whatever, Facebook, on Twitter and whatnot, right? So this is very quick because it doesn't require thinking. So that's why this force, because these devices or these apps are made through scientific research to capture your attention. You take your phone in your hand, you don't feel like putting back. Why? Because there's a lot of psychology running behind the background. So that's why. That's how it is, right? So coming back to the point, whenever that you mentioned procrastination or distraction, yes, procrastination gets you into distraction. Yes, I would rather say.
Yeah. So sometimes we tend to procrastinate for no reason. What goes on behind that?
Okay. So, well, I would like people to ask, otherwise I can also respond. A lot of procrastination happens.
Sorry,
we
what
see
was your
people-
question again, Coach Umair? Can you repeat it?
Yeah, so we see people procrastinating a lot, and some people are into the habit of procrastinating for no reason.
I have a thought about this, but I'd like to give the other participants an opportunity first. See if we have some messages coming in. Bilal Ahmed saying procrastination is not bad. Fear of failure.
Yeah, has a fear of failure. That's an interesting one. Muhammad Hanzala says demotivation. Internal conflicts. Yes, so Waqar Ahmed basically is pointing out the same thing that Nair Bhai said, that it's an internal distraction that gets translated into some action which causes procrastination. Not knowing the first step. That's very excellent. So Professor Bhai, would you like to shed some light on this?
About not knowing the first step?
Yes.
Yeah. So sometimes it happens with me is I have a very good idea in my mind and I know how to execute it, but there is a lot to do to complete that project and I don't know from where to start. So I'll start by researching the market, I start by researching technologies, or I do some kind of internal focus group. So if you have too many things on your mind and you don't know where to start, there is no simple step in step-by-step approach, then you start getting confused, and this leads to procrastination.
There was a
Or
very
I
interesting.
can say unclarity of the plan. I can say, or the lack of plan.
The lack of clarity about the plan. There was a very interesting comment here by Bilal. Procrastination is not bad. So Saad, your thoughts about it? Is procrastination always bad? Or does procrastination always become a hindrance towards productivity, to be more specific?
Yeah, I think we have to qualify Bilal's comment, because he said procrastination is not bad, and he said procrastinating what's not your goal is great. So I tend to agree with that. I mean, if something is not related to your values and goal and you're putting it away, then by all means, I would say procrastinate forever on that stuff. Because if it's not your goal and it's not aligned with your goals, then if you think about the whole Eisenhower matrix, you should either delegate it or not do it at all. So in terms of procrastination, I think there's a balance, right? So I have, in terms of productivity starts to peak at certain levels of, like, when you know that you have a deadline coming up. And this happens to authors all the time, like novel writers, I think, because when they know there's a big deadline coming up from a publisher, they, near the deadline, they get super productive and they'll lock themselves in like a hotel room for 2 months, and they will just write because they have to deliver. So, and then some writers have said publicly that procrastination to some degree brings the best in them. But I think there's a fine balance there, because I think at some stage that equation flips where it actually becomes counterproductive, which is like cramming a day before an exam, for example. Like, you cram till 4 a.m. and then you show up for your exam and you can't really remember anything because like I studied all night, why don't I remember anything? And it's because I think there's that fine balance between us as human beings, that deadline versus deadlines do have an influence. So I think in that regard, maybe some degree is acceptable. I wouldn't go so far to say procrastination is productive, but I would say to some degree, it's been demonstrated to be acceptable. And maybe that's just human nature. I just want to rewind a little bit. Just on the point, so Yahya a while ago had an interesting message about writing a very long policy. And sorry, Coach Faisal has his hands up.
No, go ahead. Yeah, I'll share something later. Please go ahead.
Sure. So there was an interesting message about writing a very long policy and procrastinating on this. And then Coach Faisal also mentioned that it's about taking the first step. And this really resonates with me because a while ago I posted something on the LinkedIn, and it was a quote from the Chinese philosopher Confucius, and it was that the man who moves a mountain does so by moving one small stone at a time, or something along those lines. So I think that's really, and that's one of the things. But when I was looking into how can you deter procrastination, one of the things is break your task down into small micro steps. And to break that cycle of procrastination, because what it does is apparently there's a chemical basis for procrastination as well. So we shouldn't always I think it helps to understand the chemical basis of things. Procrastination feels good initially because the initial impulse is you're letting yourself off the hook, right? And letting yourself off the hook feels good. It actually releases happy hormones in your brain. That's why people get stuck in the cycle. And how you can counteract that is when you take the smallest possible step, and that also feels good because that does feel good, and it also releases hormones in the brain. You replace one behavior with another, which feels equally good, and then it starts to compound. So taking that smallest step is very important, and it actually has a chemical basis in our physiology. It impacts how you feel. So I just wanted to share that. Coach Faisal, please go ahead.
Yeah. What I would like to share is that few moments back you were talking about the authors locking up themselves in a hotel room. So this reminds me of the J.K. Rowling. So she came up with a very famous Harry Potter book, and whenever she has to, the publishing date is near, she used to lock herself in a hotel room with no one else knowing where she is. And this is how people create context or a space for deep work. So this story has been mentioned in a very famous book. It's called Deep Work. So what I mean by context is that whenever you want to be more productive, you want to be more effective, you set up your context in terms of where you are, what is the time, and who has access to you. So many famous psychologists used to have like a second home that no one knows. So they used to go there whenever they have to think and they have to do some kind of a research. And this is the place, this is the context which set them up for the deep work rather than just getting lost in the firefighting. Yeah, this is what I wanted to share.
Excellent. Thereby, I have a question for you.
Please.
I was thinking about psychological safety. What do you think is the importance of psychological safety in organizational productivity?
Well, it's one of the most critical factors, and it is one of the. In fact, it becomes a deal breakers, because if people don't feel safe in raising their opinions or raising their voice, then it becomes the organization falls into the category of pathological organizations, which are power oriented and which do not grow much. So these are like single mind controlling everyone, micromanaging the organization, and all that. So psychological safety is a big time challenge in organization safety, organizational culture. So for instance, there have been not only many incidents where people said, no, we cannot raise our opinions. I mean, because our annual appraisal is very close. So we better zip our mouth, let things go the way they're going. I'm more concerned about my annual appraisal. So coming back to your point, psychological safety is very much deeply related to the productivity at workplace. That's correct. Okay, I would like to conclude by, because we have got only 5 minutes again. So I would like to conclude by two of the things that one Hisham pointed. Whether Hisham mentioned something about reading books, and whether Yahya talked about writing long policies. So let's focus on these things, because these are very specific things in our chat. I could figure out from the chat. So regarding reading books, guys, there's one thing important to understand over here. Every person is different. So for instance, let's suppose I read books, maybe you don't. You don't like to read books. You're not a kind of person who would like to read books. Maybe every one of us, it is important that we understand what type of learning is applicable or works best in our case. Then you go and leverage that kind of learning to help you grow further. The ultimate objective is to learn and grow, not to read books, right? So let's suppose if watching videos is a good way for you and you learn by watching videos, go and watch videos. If you think audio podcast is better, go walk for miles and miles, put your headsets on and listen to audio podcasts or audible books. I'm a big time lover and fan of audible books. So I've got many books in my Audible, which I keep listening to, and sometimes I re-listen to some of the books. So it all depends on what kind of learning works best for you. If you are the one who learns by doing, then go ahead and do it, right? So sometimes what happens, let's suppose, oh, I'm not able to read the books, right? Because because maybe my reading speed is slower, or my comprehension is not good, maybe my English is not so good, or English is not first language. So what do? I continue to beat myself. Oh, I'm not reading books, I'm not reading books, and then I continue to create negative impression about myself. No, guys, no. Let's accept who we are, whoever we are, and let's say as I mentioned earlier, whatever learning method best applies to you, go and do it. Make time and do it. As one of the authors of the book called Indistractable by Nir Eyal, he says, time box your things. So if you time box, you will be able to do it, inshallah. A lot of people watch YouTube, but the watching is not focused. So guys, if you're, let's say, developing your negotiation skills, leadership skills, whatever, do focused watching, and inshallah you will get somewhere. So I hope I was able to put my point across. Now regarding Yahya's point, regarding writing long policies. Now long policies, that means it is not 1 hour job or 2 hour job. Maybe it will require months. So then I would like to come back to Coach Faisal's point. Lock yourself somewhere where you cannot no one disturbs you, and then you do whatever you really want to do. Now at that time, as Coach Saad says, keep your phone away, unplug yourself and focus on your work. I know one guy, sometimes he needs to create a presentation for senior management. The guy does, sometimes he takes off from work, go and stay in a hotel, and then he works. And when he comes back after 3 days, he's loaded with lots of materials. I know this guy personally. So a lot of people do different things to create focus, because once you have focus, you go like a bullet, and you get your things done. Lose focus, lose everything. All right. So I think we are close to the end now, right? So Saad and Umar bhai, if you can close, say thanks to everyone, and I look forward to seeing you after 2 weeks.
Thank you very much, Nair bhai, for your valuable inputs, and I would like to thank each one of you for joining us, for making up time and coming to this corporate meetup. We will inshallah have this corporate meetup every fortnight, every alternate Saturday at the same time. So that's you can make a note of it. Please let us know what value did you get from today's session, today's discussion. I will be very glad to hear your feedback and your inputs. If you would like to convey this value to the people you know, people you love, tell them about MUMKIN Corporate Meetup, and we hope to see them as well in our next meetup after 2 weeks.
Yeah, can I add something? I mean, if anyone on the call feels that there's some workplace challenge or topic that's more specific to the workplace or business that they would like us to discuss in the next one or the one after, please feel free to share those, and then we would love to cover those topics, because this discussion this hour is about you. It's about having that open-ended discussion, and it's been great to see all the contribution from participants, and we want to keep this going.
Yeah, I would like to
Adding
say
to-
thank you. This is one of the most active meetings that we have ever had. I would rather say so many comments, people spoke. So I really love that experience, guys. Thank you so much for being so interactive.
And
See you after 2 weeks.
adding to Saad's comments, if there's a specific topic in your mind that you would like us to discuss, please let us know, and we will have a meetup around that topic. So thank you very much.
People
Thanks,
can
everyone.
share their comments and suggestions on Facebook.
Yes, you can
All right.
log into our Facebook page, and you can leave your comments there, your suggestions there, and we will definitely address those. It was a pleasure having all of you here, and see you after 2 weeks, inshallah.
Jazakallah khair. Assalamu alaikum.
Thanks all. Bye-bye.
Alaikum assalam.